This video is sponsored by Hooktheory. Today, I'm going to answer the web's most searched questions about music theory, starting with, is music theory hard? Music theory can definitely seem dense and confusing from the outside, but it's really a case of applying it to real-world music, applying theory to music that you know and love. Because if you don't do that, it would be a bit like learning the driving theory, the theory of the roads, without also actually learning how to drive a car. The way to learn music theory in a way that doesn't feel like an uphill battle is to put it into practice as soon as you can. Is music theory necessary? The thing is, theory isn't technically necessary, of course, because you can just kind of start playing an instrument and figure it out for yourself. But even basic things that you use every day as a musician are theory. The names of chords, the names of notes, that's all theory, right? It's just basic theory. So the question shouldn't be, is music theory necessary? It would be, what level of music theory is necessary? I actually made an iceberg video before, going down from the sort of need to know music theory stuff through to the sort of nice to know. So that would be a good place to start if you're interested. Is music theory important? The degree to which music theory is an important thing to know as a musician will vary depending on what type of music making you're doing. Music theory is an incredibly valuable tool for communicating musical ideas to other musicians. Music theory is also really valuable for learning songs. So if you're going to be playing in a band where you're performing either someone else's songs or you're learning cover songs, then theory will really give you that leg up. But there are some situations where theory is less important. For example, if you were a solo singer-songwriter, then you're not going to be communicating your ideas to other musicians, and you're also not going to be learning other songs. You're going to just be playing your own songs that you've written. So in that situation, theory actually would be less important. Is music theory the same for all instruments? Ultimately, music theory is the same regardless of which instrument you're on. So if you're in a band and the guitarist is playing a C major chord, then the piano will also be playing some sort of C major chord. And if there's a string quartet, they'll be playing notes from a C major chord. It will all sort of work together. They'll all be on the same page musically. But the way that different instrumentalists think about theory and use theory will vary for their particular needs. Is music theory important for guitar? Compared to other instruments, people who learn guitar often don't come to theory as early on, or if ever. And I think part of the reason for that is A, use of guitar tab, which doesn't require that much theory knowledge at all, and also the sort of casual self-teaching environment that a lot of people learn guitar, where they're not going through a traditional formal education on the instrument like you might if you were learning the violin. You're doing it in a far more casual way where theory might not be as high on the agenda. But that doesn't mean theory is any less important for guitar. With any instrument, knowing theory can elevate your playing. It can help you know what you're doing and therefore what you could do differently. And it also helps you work your way around other musicians and how you can interact. Is music theory necessary for songwriting? Of all of the different types of musicking you could do, I think songwriting is one where music theory is perhaps the least relevant. You can make the most progress in that field without theory. Compare it, for example, to being a session musician. Imagine you are a keyboard player or a guitarist and you join a band and someone else is writing the songs and they give you a chord chart, or maybe they don't even give you a chord chart, maybe they just play the song to you. You're going to need theory knowledge in that situation to work out what they're playing, work out what you can do to add to the music, etc. But as a songwriter, you can sort of make your own rules, right? You can choose what way you want the song to go. You can fit the song to what you know. So you don't necessarily have to know theory to work out how to write a song. But the thing I think really helps songwriters when it comes to theory is understanding what you're doing currently and therefore what you can do differently. Because if you don't know theory, then your songwriting, your composing process is kind of like a black box. You don't really know what's going on inside. So how could you make changes to the process? Is music theory math? There's a lot in common between music and maths. If we look at the rhythm side of music, for example, the timing of it, then the timing is breaking down into consistent groups, consistent numbers, what we call the meter. So most songs have a meter of 4/4, which means that there are 4 beats in each bar, and that's sort of an inherent aspect of the music. The musician isn't even necessarily aware of it, but it's there in the music, and it makes the music sound more musical, having that consistent 4 beats in the bar. And then those 4 beats can be subdivided into smaller groups of 4, or maybe 3, or maybe even different subdivisions. And all of those different layers of rhythm, those different layers of numbers, is what gives rhythm its satisfying sound. So there's definitely maths in that side of music. But there's also maths in the pitch side of music. The intervals we hear between notes, they sound the way they do because of the ratio between the 2 notes. So for example, 2 notes that are an octave apart, their frequencies have a 2-to-1 ratio. If this A has the frequency of 220 Hz, then the A above it, the next octave up, will have double that frequency, 440 Hz. And that is precisely why they sound so satisfying together, because the 2 frequencies are perfectly slotting together thanks to that perfect ratio of 2-to-1. So the maths is really in the music. The reason we find certain intervals pleasing, like the perfect 5th or the perfect 4th or the octave, is because they have very simple, satisfying mathematic ratios going on between their different notes. Being able to work out the chords of a song just by hearing it is an incredibly useful skill for any musician. Training your ear to recognise chords just by listening can seem like a really daunting task, but the more you practice it, the easier it gets, and a great tool to make your ear training practice both fun and structured is Chord Crush, the ear training tool from Hooktheory. Chord Crush teaches you how to recognise chords by ear through interactive puzzles that increase in difficulty as you learn. There are various different modes by which you can practice. You can drill into specific chords and chord patterns, or test your skills on audio clips taken from real songs. For a limited time, enjoy 20% off select Hooktheory products, including a yearly Chord Crush premium subscription, by using my unique link in the description. Is Music Theory AP hard? So Music Theory AP isn't something we have here in the UK, but I've heard a lot about it and I was intrigued to see how difficult it is. So I actually sat a sort of test quiz of some AP Music Theory questions, and I've posted that over on the second channel. So if you're interested in seeing my conclusion on whether it's hard or not, then do follow the link down below and check out the second channel. Is music theory universal? In different parts of the world, music theory will be taught and conceptualized differently, but the fundamentals of why music sounds the way it does and how it works doesn't change based on what part of the world you're on. Music, the way it sounds to us, is ultimately baked into physics. When you play a single note on any instrument, or you sing a single note, you're hearing not just one pitch, but loads of different frequencies layered on top of each other, and this is known as the harmonic series. It's a natural phenomenon that happens due to the nature of sound, the physical nature of sound, and in that note, that one note you hear, you're actually hearing various different intervals. You're hearing octaves and perfect fifths and perfect fourths and major thirds, all of these intervals that we use to make our music. So humans didn't invent these intervals. They didn't sit down and be like, oh, this will sound good. They've always been there. So for the second part of this video, I thought I would Google myself and answer a few questions that you guys seem to have about me. David Bennett piano course. So I actually have 4 different courses available out there teaching you various things about music theory. I have 3 courses with a company called Artmaster, and I have 1 course available with a company called HD Piano, and you can find them all linked down below. David Bennett piano age. My age is a common question for me, and I think it's because I look a little bit younger than I actually am. I am David Bennett piano married. Yes, David Bennett is married. David Bennett piano Wikipedia. So I've not got a Wikipedia page. I would like one because, you know, it's a bit of a sort of, look mum, I made it. But it's also just a really easy way to learn stuff about someone. And, you know, I want, in the same way I want to learn more about the YouTubers and people I watch on the internet, I'm sure you guys would like to learn more about my background. But I don't really understand how to get a Wikipedia page. I think they've kind of made it more difficult over the years. So if you're out there and you know how to make a Wikipedia page, then feel free to make one for me. But, you know, until someone else makes one, I don't really know how to do that. David Bennett piano modes. So I've made various different videos on modes, including going through each of the modes of the major scale and looking at songs that use it and the particular characteristics of that mode. And for me, actually, modes was one of the theory topics that really inspired me to start this channel, because I remember at university being taught about modes, and we were taught in such a dry way. We just taught in a completely theoretical manner, where there was just a 2-hour lesson where we went through the 7 modes, and it was just like, yeah, here they are, here's the formula, memorize this, you'll need it in the exam. And not at one point was a piece of music performed or played. You know, so where's the context? Why should we care about these modes? Why don't you show us a piece of music that uses the modes? So that's the ethos behind this channel, you know, showing theory in practice. Because like I was saying right at the beginning of this video, there's no point in theory if you don't put it into practice. David Bennett piano intervals. So I have a few videos about how to detect intervals by ear, by using famous songs. Learning how to identify intervals by ear is a really valuable skill, particularly if you want to learn songs and also learn them quickly, because you don't have to look them up on the internet. You can just sit down at your instrument and start learning any song you hear. David Bennett piano band. I was in a band. I was in a function band for 10 years. It was a big part of my life, and I learned a lot doing it, and I made some very good friends. But maybe people are searching this to see if I'm in more of an originals band, which I'm not in an originals band, but I am working on original music that I have written, and not just instrumental music like the music I've previously published on Spotify, actual songs where I've written the words and it's a real song. And those will actually be coming out in a few months' time, so I'm really excited about sharing that with you. And finally, David Bennett Patreon. Well, yes, I do have a Patreon page, and it's the people over at Patreon which assure that I will be able to make these videos for many years to come. And as is the case with all of my videos, I end with this card that shows the patrons who support on the $5 or up tier, and this rolling credits which shows all of the people who support me on Patreon for $10 or above. If you're interested in joining this list, then do follow the link down below to find out how to follow me on Patreon. And also, if you have any other questions about me or music theory that weren't in these most Googled searches, then do leave them down below in the comments as well, and I will try my best to answer them.